Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 7, Part 1, Breeding Will Tell. Einable considered himself a peaceful man. Even in his youth, his temper had been mild, and he'd felt a great aversion to violence, even for his kind. He had never, certainly in all of his life, had to grip his hands on the edge of a table in order to stave off a desire to commit wanton, repeated, and possibly lethal violence against anyone, particularly one of his own kind, especially someone far closer to the throne and than himself. Oh well, first time for everything. The incongruity of the thought took him aback a bit, and the distraction cooled his rage enough that he could let go of the table. I have been spending too much time with these humans. He then looked at the Queen's representative and his smug pose, which practically shouted that he thought the dumb humans would give way to his superiority any moment now. His rage tried to flare back up. Too much or not enough, I can't decide which. He wanted to stand and scream at the man. He wanted to turn to Henry and try to burn off some of the fury he could see building behind his friend's flawless diplomatic mask. He couldn't, however. Duke Havar Lanthieu III, rightful master of the Society of Enatal Ancestral Lord of the Southern Reaches, had been given full authority over the delicate matter of renegotiating the plan with the humans, which meant that he had to follow the idiot's edict that he remain silent, issued 2 days ago, when he had interrupted and talked Henry down from ending the negotiations and finding someone else to play the part that the humans needed them to play, which would mean the next Prime Minister would not be a Venter. He turned his attention to his laptop instead and tried to keep up with his notes. He wished for his own laptop, the one that he kept various diversions on, but nothing could be allowed in this meeting that wasn't tightly secured. This thing didn't even have a wireless network card, nor a microphone. The humans had made sure of that. Oh, there were recordings being made, but on special-built standalone devices. He continued to write his notes for the after-meeting report, and wondered why he bothered. The Duke required the report to be submitted to him, without right protection, so that he could ensure its accuracy. In reality, the Duke used his notes to write a completely different report which only vaguely resembled the actual conversation. I still don't understand why Her Majesty sent this idiotic, blowhard, isolationist, hardliner. I am beginning to believe he wants this negation to fail, and has only drug it out this long so that he can go back and claim that the fault lies with the barbarian humans. It boggles my mind, really. Her Majesty usually knows her people well, and it isn't like her to pick a thumb-handed lack-wit like this guy for such a delicate assignment, much less an isolationist. Einable's fingers froze as his screen went blank. Words he hadn't typed began to appear in purple font, the color of the royal house. You are right. Only a half-wit would choose the bozo to represent us in these negations, so you have something to figure out for yourself. Do you think I am a half-wit, or that there is something you don't know about going on and I didn't choose him? A cursor blinked on the screen, and he stared at in abject terror. Was he hallucinating? Had the strain really gotten to him? Then he realized he'd been typing what he'd been thinking instead of taking notes to the meeting, and his terror deepened. The font, the words, the person on the other side had just claimed to be the Queen herself. His terror snapped away, just like that. Impossible. Her Majesty did not communicate personally, and magically, to a mere ambassador through a computer with no network connections. He looked around the room, and everything looked normal. Probably not hallucinating then. Simplicity principle said that the next logical probability had to be a rouge program on his computer. Maybe he could disable it. He started typing commands, but none of them did anything. After a couple of attempts, new words appeared. If not for the urgency of the situation, my boy, I would find this amusing. We don't have that luxury though. Stop typing and read. That is a royal command. He began to type frantically, but letters began to appear within his words. Kursi, extapit, enanid probogram, exboyet, switstopsh protipingrams. He stopped, the terror reaching back up in him. He brought a laptop with rogue software with him into these negotiations. Never mind all the security procedures put in place, and that the Queen's Guard gave him the laptop, and that the humans had scanned it within an inch of its life. It was still his responsibility. Words began to flow, again, obviously hastily typed. "That is better, my son. I am who I say I am." Proof. When you brought the matter of the humans to me and their data crystal, my first response was to go on a most un-queen-like swearing rant, starting with questioning the ancestry of the god of luck. I then stopped, turned the display off, and asked you about your niece. You were obviously caught off guard that I would move first to such a topic, and have doubtless been trying to find some veiled threat or other message in the question. Now you know the message. I knew I might need to clandestinely contact you at some time. I do that sort of thing with people who are capable and trustworthy. Your laptop is one of a pair, designed with no network capabilities, anti-recorder screen protection, and a CC pairing with the laptop I am using. My laptop has some ability to control yours and see everything you put on the screen, so I know what you have actually written in your reports, despite that blow, minus Hard's best efforts to the contrary. So, do you need more proof, or can we get on with it? Hannibal closed his eyes a moment and tried to restore the color to his face before someone noticed. He had just been given a great compliment by, and the confidence of, the Empress herself, and he sat here, typing on a laptop that would be worth 10 times its weight in platinum. When he thought how many times he'd contemplated throwing the thing across the room in frustration, he felt the blue run out of his face all over again. He considered asking the Empress how many more weeks they expected that chip to remain cinced, but realized it didn't matter. It would last long enough for their purposes. He opened his eyes, and Henry gave him a worried glance. He surreptitiously gave the man a thumbs up and went back to typing. "Your Majesty, I am so sorry I doubted you, and humbly beg your pardon. You were right to demand proof. If you hadn't, I would have shut this link and had you drummed out of my ambassadorial corps for being an idiot. I would have liked if you had listened a bit when confronted with the unexpected, instead of mashing keys in a panic, but suppose I can't have it all. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. I need to stop apologizing, stop reminding me of my title every third word, and learn to take a joke. I think we are going to be working closely together for some time, son. And that means we need to be able to drop a certain amount of the decorum in private. But that is another conversation for another time, and predicated on whether you believe I am an idiot and put that numbskull in charge of these negotiations thinking it was a good idea. So, do you think that, Hannibal? No, of course not. That is, I must confess I do not see the reasoning behind it, try as I might. Good. If you can't figure it out with the information you have available to you, then it means that they won't be able to figure it out either. To answer your question, no, I'm not going to tell you the reasoning either. For now, it is all strictly need to know, and I need you to follow instructions right now, not think about them. I see. What is your command? Ha ha. Good one, son. It has been a long time since someone has managed to make me laugh with so little text, and I suppose I deserve that after telling you to turn your eyes up, then telling you to shut up and do as you're told. Now, shut up and do as you're told. Your instructions are to keep Lanthew at that table. If you must intervene, and he gives you any trouble, then you tell him that you received coded orders this morning, directly from me, and that if he has an issue with your actions, he is welcome to call me to verify. Hannibal sat and stared at the screen, his heart beating in his feet. To confront a landed duke that way. He swallowed hard and nodded. For Queen and country. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Good. Then you better look up from this screen. By my best guess, you are going to have to act soon. Hannibal began paying attention again as the words disappeared from his screen. He mentally reviewed what had been said in the room while he was reading, and found that he'd missed little. An hour later, he was considering faking an illness just to get out of the room, and probably would have if not for the directive he'd received. The Duke and Henry had just finished the third run-through of exactly the same 15-minute conversation without deviating a single word. He could see the Duke growing more and more agitated, but he couldn't read Henry at all. Not a good sign. He got nervous when humans stopped letting their emotions show. It usually meant they were about to do something rash, but Henry just sat there and talked in the same calm tone. Then the Duke got a look. He knew that look. The look of a platinum-spooned noble who had decided he didn't want to bother anymore. He steeled himself to obey his queen's command and intervene. Then he heard a noise outside. It sounded like dozens of men marching. Could the humans be playing some sort of game? Were some of the troops stationed at the embassy doing drills of some sort? He glanced at Henry and saw the man register the sound, and then a chill ran through his veins. The man still showed no emotion, but a glint had come into his eye. That marching had been a signal of some kind. Enibel had seen that look before, and it made his feet itch with a desire to be anywhere but here. He looked back at his screen to try and calm his nerves, only to find it had gone blank again and had a single line of text. Your orders have changed. Let it happen. Let the Duke storm out of there. Let Henry send him out, whatever. When it is over, stay with the human. Remember, Havar's writ only applies if the talks are ongoing. Once you are alone, you are to shake his hand. Tell him exactly this. Her Majesty sends her respect to the human navy and wishes to convey to you that she is committed to these ongoing talks and maintaining our alliance despite the concessions she is sure that will now require. State your compliance. I don't understand. What do you mean by, it is not your place to understand at this time, Enibel? It is your place to do. There isn't time to explain. Do you understand your instruction? I understand and obey, Your Majesty. Carry on then. His display returned to normal, and he looked up in alarm at the Duke, who had gone from insinuations about human barbarism and lack of sophistication to outright accusing humanity in general, and Henry in particular, of lying when they signed on. To that, Henry had tried to respond reasonably, but the Duke had continued to press, and began to insult Henry's parentage. Henry's face had begun to take on a red cast, something he'd seen in some humans, but never this one. He leaned forward to interject, but the Duke ploughed on. These talks are pointless, but what should one expect when a bunch of barbarians decide to let their affairs be run by mongrels of no parentage and, consequently, no proper training? You are the first in your line to have any power, are you not? Wait, no, it is worse than that. You do not even know your line, do you? You have no family, no history, no grounding in a line of achievement. You. Enibel watched Henry's face change color, again, subtly, and didn't like what he saw. He'd never seen that shade of red on any human, much less his friend. He brought his hands up to slam them on the table and interrupt, but Henry beat him to it. The man burst out laughing.